There is a kind of silence that fills a room when a truly confident person walks in. Not the kind born of arrogance or performance, but the kind that says, "I belong here, even if I say nothing at all." It's a presence you can feel, even if the person never tries to prove anything. Confidence isn't loud. It isn't about taking up space or demanding attention. It's born of stillness, of grounded presence, of knowing who you are, even when nobody's watching. In this book, you won't learn how to fake confidence. You'll discover how to become confident. We'll strip away the noise, the self-doubt, the pressure, and find the foundation beneath it all, the real, unshakable ground that holds you. So if you're ready to walk with quiet certainty, make sure you subscribe now. Because this isn't just about feeling confident. It's about becoming the person who carries confidence, not as an act, but as a quiet way of being. Chapter 1. The Root of True Confidence. Real confidence grows in soil, not spotlight. That soil is self-awareness, the space inside you where your thoughts, your fears, your strengths meet. You build confidence by planting seeds in that soil. You notice how your body holds tension when someone criticizes you. You bring kindness inward when your mind tells you you're not enough. You stand tall again even after you've been knocked down, softly reminding your nervous system, "I can handle this." People often chase confidence like it's a finish line to be reached, shown, and shared. But the most solid confidence is a path, not a prize. It's built by showing up for yourself when no one's watching. It's renewing your promise to keep going when silence feels safer than failure. It's forgiving yourself when you flinch, and then moving forward anyway. One of the first steps is leaning into your small victories. Notice the morning you answered a hard email instead of hiding from it. Remember when you spoke your truth in a conversation, because it felt more important than people-pleasing. These are not grand achievements, but they matter. They plant quiet roots. And every root makes strength beneath the surface. Confidence also comes from respecting your body, not because vanity demands it, but because you need to move forward in the world without self-destruction. Simple acts become profound. A shower when your energy is low, sleeping early when your brain won't turn off, choosing foods that feel nourishing, not just convenient. These aren't glamorous, they're acts of care, and confidence grows in care. Another part is how you think to yourself, your internal conversation. Imagine your inner voice as a friend. Does it speak with sarcasm, with punishment, with skepticism? Then it's not helping you. Start talking to yourself the way you'd talk to a friend in pain. Remind yourself that mistakes are not evidence of failure, but fuel for learning. When you do this, your confidence shifts from brittle to rooted. You also learn confidence when you stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. Social media only shows highlight reels, never the days of self-doubt behind the camera. When you catch yourself envying someone else's ease, remind yourself that their ease came after days you don't see. You're on your own timeline, and that is okay. Confidence thrives on challenge. Each time you risk slightly sending that message, sharing your opinion, trying something new, you reinforce your self-efficacy. Albert Bandura calls it believing you can take action and move forward. The more you quietly push your edge, the more your inner sense of "I can" becomes a real voice, not just a wish. And there's another layer: self-compassion. Kristin Neff teaches that confidence isn't tough, it's kind. When you drop the harshness in your thoughts and accept that you're learning and growing, that's self-compassion. You don't wait for others to give you grace, you give it to yourself. That soft ground becomes firmer than any praise from outside. Let's not forget posture. Science shows that how you stand shapes how you feel. In moments before a challenge, breathing, grounding your feet planted, softening your shoulders, you can shift your mental state. Your body communicates calm before your brain catches up. It's a language of confidence before words are spoken. Confidence isn't a mask. It isn't fixed. It's fluid. It changes by life phases, by relationship, by health, by workload, and that's okay. A person with real confidence adapts. They know, I'm not always going to feel strong. That doesn't mean I've lost strength. They hold safe spaces, the people and routines that remind them who they are when the world spins too fast. Building confidence also happens when you speak your edge. You trust your voice enough to say, I'm not sure. You ask for what you need. You set small boundaries. I can't work tonight. I need a break. These phrases are simple, but each one tiny revolution for someone used to overgiving to be safe. There'll be days you feel like an imposter. That's not evidence of defeat. Many people who are confident still feel that twinge. The difference is how they respond. They name it. That's imposter fear. They lean into it with self-compassion. They don't stop moving. They acknowledge I'm learning, I'll grow. And that attitude resets the narrative. Knowing what you stand for helps too. Not slogans. Real values. Kindness. Matters more than being right. Growth means trying and failing. Honesty connects better than perfection. When your voice is anchored in values, it doesn't echo in someone else's dream. It sounds clear, and that clarity radiates confidence. Confidence is not for showing off. It's for showing up. It's for showing up, especially when it's unpopular, when it's uncomfortable, when it's hard, when you're afraid. That's where the quiet witness inside you leans forward and says, watch me. And they do. This is not some high-stakes game. Confidence is built in the small acts, choosing truth over comfort, respect over habit, softness over self-attack. The most confident people don't build skyscrapers. They build roots, and those roots keep growing, slowly, gently, persistently, until they reach a height no wind can move. Chapter 2. The root of insecurity and the rise of real confidence. It doesn't begin with courage. It begins with fear. Most people carry a version of themselves that was formed in silence. Years ago, maybe it was in a classroom where their voice was overlooked. Or maybe it was at home, where love had conditions and approval was rare. And from that early place, something started to whisper, "You're not enough." That whisper becomes a rhythm. Then it becomes a story. And eventually, it becomes the truth. This is the quiet origin of insecurity. Not because you failed, but because somewhere, someone made you believe that your worth was conditional, that you had to do more, be more, speak less, or hide the parts of you that were too much for them. And once that belief settles in, it begins to shape your behavior. You shrink before entering the room. You second guess before finishing your sentence. You smile even when you want to cry. That's not confidence. That's survival. But here's the truth. You are not the voice that doubted you. You are not the silence that held you back. You are not the reflection someone else projected onto you. You are what you decide to become next. Confidence begins not when everything is perfect, but when you finally stop believing the lies you were taught. There's something powerful about tracing your fear back to its roots. Not to blame, not to stay stuck, but to see it clearly. Confidence does not come from pretending the pain never happened. It comes from accepting that it did and still choosing to rise from it. This kind of confidence is real. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. It only needs honesty. One of the greatest myths about confidence is that it is constant, that once you build it, it stays forever. But the truth is, confidence is like a fire. It must be fed, protected, respected. Sometimes the wind will try to blow it out. You'll hear a voice from the past. You'll face a moment of rejection, and the fire may flicker. But if you've built it from truth, it will never die. That truth comes from one thing: knowing who you are without anyone's permission. The world will try to sell you images of confidence, loud voices, fast talkers, big personalities, but real confidence isn't in how loud you are. It's in how quiet you can be without shrinking. It's not about always having something to say. It's about knowing when silence is power. You grow this confidence by making small, honest decisions every day. When you say no, even though it's uncomfortable. When you speak your mind, even if your voice shakes. When you rest without guilt. When you pursue what matters to you, not just what pleases others. These are the micro moments where confidence begins to build, not because they're perfect, but because they're real. The problem is, most people chase confidence like a performance. They try to earn it through achievements, praise, attention, but external proof never lasts. Someone else's applause will never fill the silence in your own mind. Confidence that comes from outside is always at risk, but confidence that is grown from within through clarity, courage, and truth is unshakable. Here's where the shift happens. Insecurity says, "What if I'm not good enough?" Confidence replies, "Even if I'm not perfect, I'm still valuable." That mindset shift is everything. You must unlearn the belief that you need to be flawless, to be respected. Perfection is a lie. People aren't drawn to perfection. They're drawn to presence. The way you carry yourself, the way your energy feels in the room, that only comes when you've made peace with who you are. This peace doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of self-acceptance, of sitting with your insecurities instead of fighting them, of understanding where they came from and choosing to grow beyond them. It's the difference between hiding your scars and learning to wear them with pride. There's a deeper level of confidence most never reach. It's the kind that doesn't need to be right. It doesn't need to win. It doesn't need to impress. It just needs to be real. This kind of confidence is magnetic, not because it demands attention, but because it radiates calm. You feel it in people who know who they are, even when no one's watching. Confidence at its core is about trust, trusting that you will show up for yourself, that even when you fall, you'll rise, that even when it's hard, you'll keep going. And that trust is built not through words, but through action. So start small. Choose yourself in quiet moments. Show up for your goals even when no one notices. Celebrate your wins even if they're invisible to others. Over time, you'll build a new rhythm, a new story. One where confidence isn't something you wear, but something you are. This chapter is about returning to the roots, about facing the voices that tried to shrink you and responding with your presence. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. Being the same person in every room, whether you're praised or ignored, seen or overlooked, celebrated or doubted. That is the rise of real confidence. It's not a show, it's not a moment, it's a lifestyle. And you're already living it. One grounded breath, one honest step, one bold decision at a time. Chapter 3, Breaking the Habit of Self-Doubt. Confidence is not something you are born with. It's something you build slowly, patiently, painfully. And the biggest wall standing between you and the confidence you deserve is not the judgment of others. It's the quiet, destructive habit of doubting yourself. Self-doubt is clever. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It questions your every move, your every decision, even your dreams. It makes you replay conversations, wonder if you were too much or too little. It keeps you stuck in the waiting room of life, afraid to take a step forward, because what if you fall? But here's what people forget. Confidence is not the absence of doubt. It's moving forward with doubt sitting in the back seat, not letting it grab the wheel. There was a time when even the most iconic, unshakable people you admire, actors, athletes, leaders, were shaking with insecurity, not just once, but many times. The only difference between them and those who stay stuck is that they kept going despite the uncertainty. Self-doubt becomes a habit the moment you start giving it power. Every time you listen to that voice that says you can't, you're feeding it. Every time you hesitate when you know you're capable, you're giving that habit deeper roots. And the longer you wait to challenge it, the stronger it gets. The good news, habits can be broken. Even the invisible ones. It starts with awareness. You have to catch yourself in the act. When your mind says you're not ready, pause. Ask yourself, what if I am? not in a fake, forced way, but in a grounded, honest voice that gently challenges the script you've been following for too long. Most people think self-doubt is a flaw in their personality, but it's not. It's a symptom, a reflection of old experiences that taught you to play small. Maybe you were made fun of. Maybe you were always compared. Maybe you tried once and failed, and now your brain, trying to protect you, keeps bringing up that fear every time you step towards something new. Confidence grows when you stop running from that fear and start walking with it. That means doing the thing while you're scared, starting the project, making the call, speaking your truth, wearing what you like, saying what you believe, not because the fear is gone, but because you refuse to let it own you anymore. There's a beautiful kind of growth that happens when you face a moment that used to paralyze you, and you move through it anyway. That's how new beliefs are born. Not in your head, in your behavior. You can't think your way into confidence, you must act your way into it. Tiny actions, consistent steps. Not perfect, just honest. The world doesn't need another perfect person. It needs more people who are willing to show up exactly as they are and do the thing anyway. Every time you break the cycle of hesitation, you prove something powerful to yourself. I can handle this. That one sentence, lived through action, rewires your entire nervous system. It tells your body, your brain, your future, that you are safe to grow. That's what most people never understand. Confidence isn't something you wait for, it's something you create by your response to difficulty. You create it when you mess up and don't quit, when you're awkward but stay anyway, when you feel small but speak anyway, when you're unsure but try anyway. The biggest myth about confident people is that they don't feel fear, but the truth is they've just learned how to move anyway, and that anyway is where their power lives. You can choose that too. Starting today. The next time doubt shows up, don't try to silence it. Acknowledge it, and then act in alignment with your values, not your fear. This won't feel magical. It won't feel like a movie scene. It'll feel awkward, shaky, uncertain. But that's the point. That's what growth feels like. And with time, the doubt will fade, not because you forced it to, but because your courage spoke louder. You don't have to conquer all your fears today. You just need to take one honest step. That's how confidence is built. Not with noise, but with movement. So move. Not because you're fearless, but because you're ready to stop being stuck. Chapter 4. Silence is a weapon when you know who you are. Real confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't always speak first. It doesn't always explain itself. Sometimes it walks into a room and sits down quietly, yet somehow everyone feels its presence. That kind of power doesn't come from noise. It comes from knowing who you are. We live in a world obsessed with volume. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants their moment. Everyone wants to prove something. But when you truly understand your worth, you realize you don't need to raise your voice to command attention. Your presence speaks louder than your words ever could. Silence, when rooted in strength, is not weakness. It's a signal. It says, I am not desperate for validation. It says, I don't need to rush to fill the space to feel important. It says, I know what I carry, even if you haven't seen it yet. There's a kind of stillness that makes people lean in, not because you're mysterious, but because you're grounded. That's the kind of quiet confidence people remember, the kind that doesn't perform. It just is. Think back to the most powerful people you've met, not in terms of fame or money, but in the way they made you feel. Chances are they didn't try too hard. They weren't trying to be impressive. They were just fully themselves, calm, unapologetic, present. That's because they had nothing to prove and nothing to hide. You only chase noise when your identity feels shaky. You only try to impress when your self-worth depends on how others react. But once you feel secure in who you are, you stop needing attention to feel valuable. And that changes everything. You no longer walk into rooms wondering who's going to like you. You walk in wondering who aligns with your energy. You no longer speak just to fill silence. You speak when it matters. You no longer say yes out of fear. You say no without guilt. You stop performing. You start existing. This isn't about arrogance, it's about stability. About building an inner home so strong that even when the world shakes, you remain rooted. You don't flinch every time someone doesn't clap. You don't bend every time someone disagrees. You don't break every time someone leaves. You begin to trust your own silence. That silence becomes your edge. In arguments, it keeps you from saying what you'll regret. In relationships, it helps you listen deeply. In public, it makes your words more powerful, because people know you only speak when you mean it. But silence also does something deeper. It protects your energy. You stop oversharing with people who haven't earned your truth. You stop justifying yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trying to explain your dreams to those who can't see past their limitations. You become more selective, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. And when you do speak, your voice lands differently. People listen, not because you're loud, but because you're real. Because you've earned the right to be heard through your character, not just your volume. This is the stage of confidence that changes your life. The kind that doesn't need applause to stay motivated. The kind that doesn't fall apart when rejected. The kind that stands tall, even in silence. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of clarity. In that silence, you hear your own voice again. The real one, the one beneath the noise of the world. The one that knows your values, your story, your limits, your worth. The one that reminds you, you are already enough. You don't need to interrupt conversations to be seen. You don't need to speak fast to be smart. You don't need to agree with everyone to be kind. You don't need to share everything to be authentic. You just need to show up, fully present, deeply grounded, quietly powerful. That's what people remember. Not the loudest person in the room, but the one who was real. The one who listened without judgment. The one who didn't flinch when criticized. The one who chose silence, not as avoidance, but as mastery. You don't have to chase every argument. You don't have to fix every misunderstanding. You don't have to explain yourself to people who aren't ready to hear you. Let your actions speak. Let your results speak. Let your character speak. And when you do speak, let it cut through the noise like thunder from a calm sky. Chapter 5. The mirror never lies, but it doesn't tell the whole truth. Confidence often dies in front of a mirror. Not because the mirror tells lies, but because we expect it to show more than it can. The mirror reflects shape. It shows posture. It captures aging, but it cannot reflect growth. It cannot show you the depth of your resilience. It doesn't reveal the battles you've won in silence, the choices you've made that no one else saw, the nights you didn't break even when everything inside you tried to. People often confuse appearance with confidence. They chase beauty, perfection, status. They spend hours adjusting their reflection, thinking that if they can control how they look, they can finally control how they feel. But confidence doesn't come from the outside in. It always flows from the inside out. You've seen it before, someone with no designer clothes, no flashy image, no exaggerated charm. But when they enter a room, everything pauses. Their confidence isn't something they wear, it's something they carry. It's in their quiet calm, in their eyes that don't flinch, in their step that doesn't rush, in their silence that feels complete. That kind of confidence doesn't show up in the mirror. The mirror can't show you the hours you spent learning, practicing, preparing when nobody was watching. It doesn't reflect your character. It can't display how many times you held yourself together, how many times you didn't react, didn't lash out, didn't give up. These things, the hard-won, inner choices, are what shape real confidence. But here's the twist. Even though the mirror doesn't tell the whole truth, we keep asking it to. We stare at it, searching for worth, measuring flaws, scanning for validation. We let our reflection determine our energy, our mood, even our willingness to show up in the world. It's time to shift that power back where it belongs. You are not your reflection. You are your effort, your discipline, your heart, your resilience. You are the quiet choices you make when no one's around. You are the kindness you give without needing anything back. You are the person who keeps showing up, even on days when your hands shake and your voice feels small. Confidence is not a look. It's a presence, a rhythm in your energy that says, I know who I am. Even when you're overlooked, even when you're underestimated, even when the world says nothing. Especially then, because confidence doesn't always grow in applause. Sometimes it grows in rejection, in loneliness, in the seasons when nobody understands your path, when you keep going anyway, when you refuse to abandon yourself even when it feels easier to do so. The world will always try to make you prove yourself. Your job is to prove yourself to yourself, not with perfection, but with consistency, with honesty, with discipline, with the small daily moments that no one claps for but that change your story forever. Stand in front of the mirror and see beyond the skin. Look deeper, into your eyes, into your character, into your quiet strength. You don't have to love every inch of your body to walk in confidence. You just have to respect who you are becoming, because when you walk with integrity, when your life is aligned with your truth, your presence starts to speak louder than your appearance ever could. Real confidence doesn't need makeup. It doesn't need filters. It doesn't need staged perfection. It needs honesty, grit, grace under pressure. So walk past the mirror. Look beyond it. Step into the world with your head up, not because you look perfect, but because you know who you are beyond your reflection. That's where the real power lives. Chapter 6, Confidence begins, where comparison ends. Most people lose their confidence, not because they're not good enough, but because they keep measuring themselves against someone else. They compare their beginning to someone's highlight reel, their doubt to someone's polished version, their struggle to someone's moment of ease. And the moment you do that, your own voice gets quieter. It starts small. You notice someone's achievement, and suddenly your progress feels slow. You hear their fluency, and your words feel clumsy. You see their body, and yours feels incomplete. Bit by bit, you forget your own story, and start rewriting yourself in someone else's handwriting. But here's the truth. Comparison is the thief of identity. What makes confidence real is that it's rooted in authenticity, in your path, your pace, your process, your values. No one else has lived your exact story. No one else has fought your battles with your scars. So why would you ever think your confidence should look like theirs? Social media made this worse. Now you don't even compare yourself to real people. You compare yourself to edited, filtered, rehearsed illusions. People showing you only their shine, never their dust. You scroll through perfect meals, perfect vacations, perfect families, and forget that behind every post is a person with their own fears and insecurities. Confidence grows when you stop looking outward and start going inward. When you stop asking, am I as good as them? And start asking, am I better than I was yesterday? You don't have to be the best. You have to be committed. You have to show up. You have to outlast the doubt long enough for your truth to find its place in the world. That's what real strength looks like. Not perfection, but progress that no one else can take away from you. The truth is, no matter how far you go, there will always be someone ahead of you. But there will also always be someone behind you. The goal is not to win the race, it's to stay in it, to run your own path, without losing yourself trying to catch someone who was never meant to be your destination. You can't build confidence on borrowed dreams, and you can't grow if you keep planting yourself in someone else's soil. You have to be rooted in your own journey. That means accepting your flaws, honoring your timing, trusting your growth, and refusing to shrink just because someone else seems brighter in the moment. Your story is not on their page. There's power in accepting that. Because once you do, you stop chasing. You stop mimicking. You stop needing approval from people who don't know your pain. You begin to shape your voice from your own experience. You begin to trust your rhythm, your style, your truth. That's where confidence becomes unshakable, because it's no longer based on being better than someone else. It's based on being real, and real doesn't expire. Real doesn't fade with age. Real doesn't crack under pressure. Confidence built on competition will collapse when you lose. Confidence built on authenticity will carry you through any storm. You have to choose what kind of confidence you want, because every time you compare, you shrink a little. Your focus slips away from your lane. Your energy leaks into someone else's life, and by the time you realize it, you're lost in their story while your own sits untouched. But when you stop comparing, everything changes. You start moving with purpose, not pressure. You start building with intention, not urgency. You start speaking with clarity, not fear. You start showing up, not to prove, but to live. You stop performing, you start becoming. And that's when people feel something shift, because now your confidence isn't just an image, it's a reality. It's in how you walk, how you sit in silence, how you listen without needing to dominate, how you look people in the eye without flinching, how you carry your history without shame. When you know who you are, you stop asking the world to remind you. You don't need to be louder, you need to be truer. You don't need to match anyone. You need to match your own potential. You don't need more applause, you need more alignment. That's the kind of confidence that lasts. Chapter 7. The Power of Stillness in a Noisy World. Confidence doesn't always look like movement. It doesn't always arrive with a loud voice or a strong step. Sometimes it shows up as stillness, unshaken, unmoved, rooted in a world that never stops talking, where everyone wants to be heard, where opinions rise like tides. Stillness becomes a rare and powerful force. We're trained to react. The moment we're challenged, insulted, or overlooked, we're told to fire back, stand up for yourself, say something, prove your worth. And in many moments, that voice is right. But sometimes, silence is the most powerful language. Not the silence of weakness or fear, but the silence of clarity. Of someone who doesn't need to convince others because they've already convinced themselves. A confident person doesn't need to interrupt every conversation. They don't have to be seen every moment to feel seen. They don't rush to fill quiet with noise, because they understand confidence isn't proven by how fast you speak, how loud you are, or how often you're noticed. Confidence is proven in how little you need to be noticed to know your value. Stillness is misunderstood. People think it's passive, lazy, unproductive. But stillness is focus. It's restraint. It's inner order. It's the person in the meeting who doesn't speak for attention, but when they do, the whole room stops. It's the athlete who doesn't trash talk, but dominates with discipline. It's the leader who doesn't raise their voice, but leads with presence. These people don't chase moments, they become moments, and becoming a moment that's confidence. Stillness is hard in the age of urgency. Every app begs you to scroll, every headline screams for your panic, every platform teaches you to perform. You wake up and feel behind before the day begins. You speak to be accepted, not to express. You rush because slowing down feels like weakness. But in truth, rushing steals your power. Confidence begins when you stop racing the world and start walking with yourself. Stillness lets you feel. It lets you think without noise. It lets you listen, not just to others, but to yourself. And the more you listen, the more you begin to realize what matters and what doesn't. What deserves your energy, and what is just noise dressed as urgency. The confident mind is not scattered, it is centered. Grounded. That doesn't mean it doesn't feel fear, it just means it doesn't serve it. It doesn't mean it has all the answers, it just means it trusts itself enough to sit with the question. Stillness becomes the space where clarity rises, and clarity, real clarity, is magnetic. You don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to join every argument. You don't have to jump into every trend. Confidence is the ability to say no without apology, to stand still when the world moves in chaos, to be calm in the middle of conflict, to look someone in the eye and say nothing, not because you're weak, but because you've already won inside. Stillness isn't the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. You feel the same fear, the same doubt, the same anger, but you don't let it drive. You don't hand over the wheel. You acknowledge it, breathe, and stay. You trust that you don't need to react to prove you're alive. You need only respond when it's wise. That's what separates confidence from ego. Ego shouts. Confidence listens. Ego performs. Confidence aligns. Ego chases. Confidence attracts. The world doesn't teach stillness. But if you want to live with lasting power, you have to learn it. You have to find your inner seat and sit in it, even when the pressure says stand and run. Because when you're rooted inside, nothing outside can shake you long. It takes courage to be still in a world that rewards noise. But that's the very reason it's powerful. The less you chase, the more you begin to notice what chases you. Peace, strength, respect, even influence. Because people feel when someone isn't reacting from fear but responding from depth. So the next time you feel the pull to speak without thinking, to move without direction, to respond just to stay relevant, pause, breathe. Remember who you are. Find the ground beneath your feet and trust you don't need to be louder to be stronger. You need to be clearer, truer, steadier. Stillness is not the absence of action. It's the presence of purpose. Let that be your anchor. Chapter 8. The language of self-belief. True confidence doesn't begin with how you talk to others. It begins with how you talk to yourself. Before the voice reaches the world, it echoes inside you softly at first, like a whisper, but it grows stronger with repetition. Most people never notice how brutal their inner voice has become. They walk through their lives carrying a critic, not a coach. And that critic sounds like someone they trusted once, a parent, a teacher, a friend, a stranger, who threw careless words that stuck. Over time, those words became familiar. Then they became beliefs. Then, before they even realized it, those beliefs became a cage. Confidence breaks that cage by changing the conversation. Not just with others, but with yourself. You cannot speak powerfully to the world if you speak with cruelty to yourself behind closed doors. No matter how polished your voice sounds outside, if your inner dialogue is full of doubt, insecurity, and shame, the world will feel that fracture, because confidence leaks from the inside. It's not a costume, it's a current. To believe in yourself is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's recognizing that the same voice you use to lift others up deserves to be used on yourself too. That every time you say I can't, I'm not enough, or who do I think I am, you are tearing down the foundation you're trying to build on. Your mind listens to every word you say, especially the quiet ones. If you want to grow real, lasting confidence, you have to treat yourself like someone worth guiding, someone worth coaching, not criticizing. You have to be patient with your process. You have to forgive your setbacks. You have to acknowledge effort as much as outcome. People think self-belief is automatic, but it's not. It's built, brick by brick, day by day, through how you respond to failure, how you carry yourself through doubt, how you show up when no one is clapping. That's where belief is forged. And sometimes, believing in yourself is just about staying in the game. You don't have to roar. You don't have to convince the room. You just have to not leave. Not give up on the version of yourself that only you can see right now. because maybe no one else sees it yet. Maybe they don't believe in you. But that's okay. It's not their job. It's yours. It's your job to protect that vision, to nurture it, to keep showing up for yourself even when the results aren't visible yet, even when the progress is slow, even when you feel ridiculous. That's what builds unshakable self-belief, not being right all the time, but refusing to abandon yourself in the dark. Every confident person you admire once had to believe without proof. They had to walk into rooms where no one knew their name. They had to speak before they were respected. They had to create before they were followed. And every time they could have given up, they chose not to. That's not magic. That's repetition. That's choosing to say, I am still becoming, instead of I'm not enough. You become what you repeat. So if you repeat fear, fear will grow. If you repeat doubt, doubt will take root. But if you repeat belief, real belief, not empty hype, then you give yourself something to rise into. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be faithful. Faithful to your process, faithful to your progress, faithful to the small steps that no one claps for. That's where confidence lives. It's in how you speak to yourself when you fail. It's in the names you call yourself when no one is listening. It's in the posture you hold when the applause has faded. That's what separates temporary motivation from real confidence. Because confidence is not a performance. It's not what happens when people are watching. It's what happens when they're not. And you still show up with strength. Chapter 9. Confidence through consistency. Confidence doesn't grow overnight. It's not a moment. It's not something you wake up with one morning after watching a video or reading a quote. Real confidence is slow. It's built brick by brick in the dark. When no one sees it, when no one is clapping, when no one is even watching, confidence grows through consistency. And consistency is the most underrated power in the world. Most people quit too soon. Not because they don't care, but because they expect results too fast. They want to feel confident before they act. But the truth is, action comes first, then belief, then confidence. Not the other way around. You don't need to feel ready. You need to move anyway, again and again. The confident ones are not the loudest. They're the most consistent. They show up when they're tired, when they're doubted, when the results aren't coming, when the world feels cold. They show up not because it's easy, but because they've trained their identity to be bigger than their feelings. That's the root of confidence. You act like the person you want to become, long before you feel like that person. And you do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Not perfectly, but faithfully. Confidence grows when you keep promises to yourself. It dies when you break them. Every time you say you'll do something, and you don't, you train your brain to doubt you. And every time you follow through, even in a small way, you rebuild trust. That trust becomes the foundation of your inner strength. That's why even the smallest habit matters. Waking up on time, saying no to distractions, finishing what you start. These are not just discipline tools, they are confidence tools. They remind you that your voice matters, that your actions matter, that you are someone worth listening to, even by your own mind. People think confidence is about being fearless, but it's not. It's about being reliable. Confidence comes from knowing that even if today is hard, you'll be here again tomorrow. Still trying, still standing, still believing. There's something deeply powerful about that kind of repetition. It wears down resistance. It silences inner noise. It teaches your nervous system that discomfort won't break you. And over time, what once scared you becomes normal. What once overwhelmed you becomes routine. That shift, that quiet transition from fear to familiarity, is how confidence is born. It's not a lightning strike. It's a slow burn. Most people never stay in the fire long enough to see that. They panic when the results don't show up right away. They compare their chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. They scroll. They doubt. They stop. And then they wonder why they feel lost. But the confident person knows better. They know growth is invisible before it becomes obvious. They know it takes time, and they're okay with that. Because they're not playing for the moment. They're playing for the long game. They're building something no one can take from them. You can fake motivation, but you can't fake consistency. That's why it's so powerful. Because it proves what words can't. You're not doing it to impress anyone. You're doing it to become someone stronger, sharper, calmer, someone who trusts themselves even when the results haven't arrived yet. That kind of confidence can't be bought. It must be earned, and consistency is the price. So when the day feels heavy, when doubt creeps in, when nothing seems to be working, don't disappear. Stay, show up. Do what you can, even if it's small. Especially if it's small. Because the small things, repeated long enough, become unstoppable. That's what most people miss. They chase big moves and dramatic shifts, but the confident ones, they just keep stacking small wins, quietly, daily, with no rush, no panic, no need to prove. They know who they're becoming, and they trust the process, even when no one sees it yet. Especially then. Chapter 10, Owning the Room Without Saying a Word. Confidence isn't always loud. In fact, the most powerful kind often walks in silence before a word is spoken, before a sentence is formed. Long before you open your mouth, people are already listening to your body, your posture, your energy. That's the part most people overlook. They prepare their speech, their points, their clever replies, but they forget to align their presence. And without presence, words fall flat. The most persuasive people in the world have mastered this silent language. When they enter a room, they don't demand attention, they attract it, not with noise, but with calm, with stillness, with posture that says, I know who I am. I don't need to prove anything. That alone makes the room adjust to them. And it's not just about standing tall or making eye contact. It's deeper than that. It's about what your body believes about your worth. If your mind is full of doubt, your shoulders will slump. If your chest carries shame, your voice will falter. But when your self-perception is steady, your body becomes an amplifier of that strength. You don't need to pretend. You just need to be aligned. Because presence isn't performance, it's self-awareness made visible. Confidence radiates when your thoughts, words, and posture all say the same thing. That's why you must train your presence before you train your pitch. You don't need to be loud. You need to be clear. Clear about your value, clear about your intent, clear about your space in the room. And that clarity speaks louder than volume ever could. In moments of tension, the most persuasive people don't talk more. They breathe deeper. They don't chase the room. They slow it down. They anchor it. That's what makes them memorable. It's not what they say. It's how people felt around them. And people remember how you made them feel far longer than what you said. So what does it take to develop that kind of presence? It begins with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel awkward, but full, grounded, confident. Practice sitting in silence without needing to fill it. Walk into rooms without rushing to be seen. Let others talk first. Listen fully, and when you finally speak, let it come from calm, not chaos. You don't need to rush. You don't need to prove. The world is already noisy. Confidence is rare because calm is rare. Be the calm. When you walk into a meeting, an interview, a date, a stage, breathe first. Let your breath drop into your body. Let your feet feel the ground. Let your shoulders drop. That one moment, that pause before action, is where your power lives. Because in that pause, you choose who you're going to be. You choose not to react. You choose not to shrink. You choose not to speed up just because the world is spinning faster. And that choice, that stillness in motion. That is what makes you magnetic. People trust those who seem at home in their own skin. You don't need to dominate. You need to occupy your space, fully, naturally, gently. That's how you own a room, by not needing to, by simply being so rooted in who you are that the room adjusts around your gravity. Confidence at its highest level is not about control. It's about surrender, surrendering to your preparation, surrendering to your truth, surrendering to the moment without resistance. The most persuasive minds don't rely on tricks, they rely on alignment. And the more aligned you are internally and externally, the less effort it takes to be heard. Because when you believe yourself, others tend to believe you too. Chapter 11. Rejection is not the end. Rejection feels personal. It hits the chest like a punch and echoes in the head like a whisper that won't go away. Most people don't talk about it, but they carry it. Every no, every silence, every door that never opened becomes part of the story they tell themselves. And over time, that story becomes their ceiling. But here's the truth that the most persuasive minds understand. Rejection is not the end. It's just redirection. It's information. It's resistance that strengthens your clarity. When someone says no to you, they are not always rejecting you. They may be rejecting the timing, the opportunity, their own capacity to receive what you're offering. It's rarely as personal as it feels. Still, it stings. And the sting is real. But that pain can either shrink you or sharpen you. Confidence doesn't grow by avoiding rejection. It grows by surviving it again and again, until you realize it never had the power to define your worth in the first place. The world's most persuasive people have been told no more times than most can count. But they didn't flinch. They didn't spiral. They didn't internalize every dismissal. They understood that rejection is a sign they are trying, that they are moving, that they are reaching beyond safety. And in that stretch, confidence is forged. When you expect to be told yes every time, your confidence becomes fragile. But when you train yourself to keep moving after a no, your self-worth becomes bulletproof. Rejection is part of every meaningful pursuit. You will not build anything worthwhile without running into it. Whether it's the person who ignores your pitch, the client who walks away, the friend who drifts, the gatekeeper who closes the door, you will face it. And when you do, you have two choices: build a wall or build resilience. Rejection becomes dangerous only when you let it rewrite your identity. It doesn't mean you're not talented. It doesn't mean you don't belong. It means you are learning what doesn't work so you can better refine what does. That's data. That's feedback. That's direction, not destruction. Confidence whispers in the back of your mind when everything else is loud. It says, this is not the end. You still matter. You still have value. Keep going. But to hear that voice, you have to stay. You have to resist the urge to vanish when you feel dismissed. You have to fight the temptation to shrink your dreams down to avoid future pain. You have to learn how to hold space for discomfort without letting it become your identity. That's what the strongest communicators do. They don't dodge rejection, they dance with it, they absorb it, reflect on it, and move forward sharper than before. Not bitter, not jaded, but refined. They understand that every no is just a step closer to the right yes. Not every door was meant for you. Not every opportunity would have served you. Some closed doors are not a failure, they are protection. You just couldn't see it yet. Confidence grows when you learn to separate feedback from your identity. Someone may not like your style. That doesn't mean your style is wrong. Someone may say you're not the right fit. That doesn't mean you're not valuable. But if you internalize every opinion as truth, you will be at the mercy of other people's insecurities. You were not born to be universally accepted. You were born to be authentic, and authenticity is polarizing. The more honest you become, the more some people will resist. That's okay. Because the people you were meant to impact will feel you more deeply when you stop performing for acceptance. That is confidence in its rawest form, standing in who you are even when someone says, "Not for me." Especially then. You don't need to change your soul to earn approval. You need to be brave enough to stay true when approval doesn't come. Every powerful communicator you admire has walked through rejection. Some were laughed at, some were doubted, some were told they had nothing important to say, but they spoke anyway. They showed up anyway. They believed in the vision, even when the world couldn't see it. That belief is rare. That belief is power. Let rejection shape you, but never let it erase you, because one day the same people who dismissed you will see what they missed. And by then, you won't even need their validation. Chapter 12, Becoming the Voice That Moves Others. There is a moment, often quiet, when everything changes. Not because the world shifted, but because you did. You start noticing the way people lean in when you speak, the way your words no longer tremble, the way your body feels settled, not heavy but grounded, not nervous, but ready. That's when you realize you've become the kind of person you once admired. Confidence isn't a destination, it's a condition you build inside you, brick by brick, day by day, word by word, not to impress others, not to dominate rooms, but to free yourself from the constant noise of self-doubt that used to live in your head. And when that voice grows quiet, you begin to hear something new, a clarity that was always there, buried under fear. By now you've walked through the hard parts. You've heard that rejection doesn't end you. You've learned to control your presence before you speak. You've stopped waiting for permission to feel enough. And you've seen what happens when you own your story without apology. The world's most persuasive minds didn't get there by accident. They worked for it, through silence, through pain, through years of learning how to be okay with being misunderstood. They stopped performing. They started listening to themselves, to others, to the quiet truth underneath all the noise, and that truth guided them to mastery. You are on that path now. But here's the final secret, the one most people miss. It's not about becoming confident so you can be admired. It's about becoming confident so you can lift others. Because real confidence is generous. It doesn't take the spotlight, it shares it. It doesn't silence others, it makes them feel heard. You don't need to be perfect to speak powerfully. You need to be present and real. When you walk into a room, you carry everything you've learned. Every failure that shaped you. Every scar that taught you. Every moment you almost quit but didn't. That's your fuel. That's what gives your voice weight, not polish, but truth. People are starving for truth. They don't need another polished voice. They need your real one. Let the silence before you speak be your anchor. Let the breath before your words be your strength. Let the calm in your body remind you that you belong. Because you do. You belong in rooms where you once thought you were too small. You belong at tables where your voice felt too shaky. You belong in moments that once terrified you. But now, you don't fear the moment. You are the moment. And if someone can't see your value, let that be their burden, not yours. You don't owe the world your smallness. You owe it your fullness, your fire, your presence. So go speak, go lead, go walk into the places you once avoided, not to prove anything, but to become everything you already are. You're not here to survive anymore. You're here to shine. And when it gets hard, and it will, remember this. You were never meant to stay quiet. You were meant to rise, to speak, to shake the walls with the quiet strength of someone who has finally learned to believe themselves. That is the kind of confidence that cannot be broken. That is the kind of voice the world is waiting for. And that voice is yours. If this audiobook moved something inside you, if it helped you walk taller, speak clearer, or feel more grounded in who you are, don't keep it to yourself. Confidence is contagious. Share it, spread it, pass it forward. And if you want more journeys like this, more audiobooks, more powerful topics, more deeply human storytelling, Make sure to subscribe, because we're just getting started. Your voice matters, and we're here to help you make it heard. Thank you for listening. You were born to lead. You were born to own your voice. Now go use it.